Hello, welcome to the Level Headed Podcast. On this episode, I'm starting my 32 team NFL preview. This is episode 1, talking about the San Francisco 49ers. I have a super fan. I went to Reddit and I was searching for super fans, people to interview about their teams. I want emotion, I want knowledge, I want enjoyable content and conversation. I'm joined with Aaron Wilson here, who I found on Reddit. If you want to plug your Reddit, plug your name, whatever you're doing, Aaron, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks so much for having me on the podcast. Again, my name is Aaron Wilson. I'm actually outside of the Baltimore, Maryland area. I'm a huge 49ers fan. Me and my brother have founded a website called InsideThe49.com where we bring up-to-date information about the 49ers. We do some writing ourselves, but we also bring together writing from all the big writers when it comes to 49ers work.
All right, well, I've spoke a little bit with Aaron before we started recording this. Obviously, I had to make sure that he was indeed worthy of contributing good content to the podcast, and there's a reason he's on right now. He sounds like the kind of guy that I want to talk about the 49ers with. So we're going to start this podcast just sort of recapping last year and kind of how awful that was for you guys. You were 2-14. You ended up firing your coach, Chip Kelly, after 1 year. You finally fired your GM, who was kind of a good GM when you guys were going to the Super Bowl with Jim Harbaugh, but out he goes. In comes John Lynch. Carlos Hyde ran for less than 1,000 yards last year. You couldn't ever figure out your quarterback situation. You had the worst defense in the NFL by multiple statistics. And your offense was towards the bottom of the league in points and yards too. So what happened last year? And obviously you guys made some changes with your staff and your front office, but what happened last year with the 49ers?
It was just a tough year, all in all. I mean, from the fact that Colin Kaepernick couldn't start the year off playing, and we had to go with Blaine Gabbert, who's one of the worst NFL quarterbacks kind of all time, if you look at his stats, to really not really being able to go anywhere with Chip Kelly. You know, Chip Kelly came in. We were all excited. Okay, what is he going to do? Is he going to speed up the offense? He's going to be able to use Colin Kaepernick and Carlos Hyde and really get it going, but he really couldn't do much. Again, we had a bunch of injuries. Bowman went down throughout the course of the year. Carlos Hyde didn't finish the year. There's a bunch of other injuries, but it really was funny when we talked about the offseason, like what are they going to do? And the biggest issue they had was on their offensive line, and they didn't address it, and they didn't address it, and didn't address it, and they had all this extra cap space. And I was thinking, what the heck are they doing? Okay, maybe they know more than we know. There's got to be something. But what happens? They get in there. They have the worst offensive line in the league, and Gabbert can't do anything. Kaepernick comes in there. He can't do anything, and just pretty much falls apart. The defense was very weak. Not having Bowman in there throughout the decent part of the year when he tore his Achilles was a huge hurt. And they really need to step up their game in terms of the offseason. They really didn't do it. So it was a really disappointing year. I was really surprised they got rid of Jim Kelly after 1 year. I thought they would at least give him a couple more years, but there was so much animosity between Trent Baalke, the old GM, and Jed York. It was time for him to go. And as soon as Trent Baalke left and they brought in Lynch and then they brought in Shanahan, it was a new scheme. And sights are high definitely this year. We understand that it's not going to be an amazing year. I know NFL pundits are thinking we're going to win 4 to 5 games. I think odds for Vegas are 4.5. We're hoping for better, but the biggest thing is progress. And the great thing now is the fact that we have Shanahan, who's an amazing offensive mind, and Lynch, who isn't proven, but it seemed to do some good stuff, definitely with the draft and bringing in a bunch of new players. So definitely, it's optimistic, that's for sure. But we'll see what happens. We just want to go take a step in the right direction. There's nowhere to go besides up with the 2-14 team from last year.
Yeah, exactly. The arrow has nowhere to go but up. And I would say just based off the moves that you guys made, and even with sort of an unproven head coach and definitely an unproven GM. The 49ers are turning upwards. One of the questions that I want to make sure I ask everybody, through this offseason, would you say that your team got better or worse?
I mean, it's not about it. They got better. From completely switching over the roster, I mean, we signed 22 veteran free agents, and out of those 22, probably 8 to 9 are going to be starters, and they're upgrades of the majority of the positions. Quarterback is a huge issue for us. Brian Hoyer, although he's not top notch, quality quarterback. He's definitely in the middle of the road and has done a lot with some pretty crappy teams. So it's definitely going in the right direction. And with Shanahan, I think the sky's the limit for him. He's got all the talent in the world. He's been successful with the Browns, with the Redskins, who weren't really good teams, and then with the Falcons last year, taking them to the Super Bowl. So it's definitely going in the right direction, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I'm actually somebody that thinks that Falcons Super Bowl run was heavily reliant on the talents of Kyle Shanahan more so than Matt Ryan and the personnel. I love their personnel, but I think Shanahan was the big key there. But that's a different.
100% agree with you.
Yeah, that's a different topic for a different day. There's a lot of different places where we can start with this 49ers team. We can start with the staff changes. I know one of the things that you wanted to talk about was the shift in defensive scheme from 3-4 to the 4-3, and you guys have a lot of sort of established personnel in your front seven, so that can shake things up. But first, I think we can start with the free agents. You mentioned how many of them you signed. Pierre Garçon was somebody who I love Pierre Garçon. I think I've had him on my fantasy football team like the last 5 or 6 years or however long he's been in the league.
He's solid, man. He's gonna get you some yards. He's gonna get you some touchdowns. That's for sure.
Some of the names I noticed, you obviously mentioned Brian Hoyer, Marquise Goodwin. He's just another receiver who's been in the league for a few years. Tim Hightower, he's a veteran running back. Elvis Dumervil, and then Malcolm Smith, who was actually Super Bowl MVP for the Seahawks that year. I think he had like a pick six or a fumble recovery or something like that. Definitely some veteran names.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing how many people they brought in, and they had to. With a 2-14 team, you need to restock the shelves, and that's exactly what they did. Their receiving core is going to be completely different with Garçon, Goodwin, Aldrick Robinson, and then getting Trent Taylor in the draft. They're going to stay with Jeremy Curley in the slot, and Trent Taylor's going to battle with him for that slot position. But the wide receiving core is going to be a ton better.
What about Brian Hoyer specifically? The quarterback situation was awful for you guys last year. Probably the single biggest reason. Like, if you don't have a quarterback, your offense is never going to get off the ground. You opted, other than drafting C.J. Beathard, however you want to say it, from Iowa in the third round.
Beathard, yeah.
They really didn't, they didn't make a move for any of the highly touted rookies in the draft. They didn't, maybe Kirk Cousins was going to be on the trade market or anything like that, but looks like they're going to wait it out for Kirk Cousins if that's the long play. But Brian Hoyer and then C.J. Beathard, pretty much your quarterbacks, and Matt Barkley, I guess, moving forward. How does that make you feel for this team?
It's, Hoyer, I think, is an underrated guy. Teams, and he's got a lot of potential to really push to the next level. He's the guy who was behind Brady in New England, and there's something to be said for that particular position, be able to learn from Belichick, one of the best minds, if not the best mind in the NFL. So I definitely think they're thinking about Cousins in the background. Pundits always say, there's a chance he's going, there's a chance he's not. He could get signed. Who knows what's going to happen with that $25 million contract he's sitting on now. He's still pretty happy about it. But, there's a big draft next year, too, with 3 big top-notch quarterbacks. So I think those are kind of the 2 options for them. But there's a chance that Hoyer could step up this year. He could fit in that system. He could do really well with Shanahan, and they could ride that wave for a couple of years.
And how do you feel about C.J. Beathard? Any expectations for him? It doesn't seem like he's really going to be taking too many first-team reps, but he was drafted in the 3rd round. That's, the quarterbacks drafted in the 3rd round typically get at least a look.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a little bit of love. They got Barkley as well. I think Barkley's kind of going to be a backup for his entire career. I don't see him as a starting quarterback. He's kind of going to be that reliable backup. And then Beathard is just there as a potential. You never know. See what Shanahan can do. He's great with quarterbacks. He can start to build him up. There's a chance. There's an opposite chance. I would say maybe 10-15% chance that Hoyer sits for a couple of years with the Niners. Beathard plays well, steps up, and then he takes over that role. But it's kind of hit or miss. Any quarterback after the first 2 rounds is usually a tough bet that they're actually going to be successful.
All right, next thing we're going to talk about is that 3-4 to 4-3. You have a new defensive coordinator. He's going to switch up the scheme. Some of the personnel in that front 7, Navarro Bowman, Aaron Lynch, Hodges, Brooks. Now you have 2 new rookies, Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead. These are all guys that are sort of going to contribute either in like a solid way or an above average way. But the ones that aren't rookies, for guys, pretty much everybody other than Thomas or Foster, they've been playing a 3-4 defense for the last few years. So how is that switch going to affect some of those guys? Like those, being an inside linebacker in a 3-4 defense is different than being a middle linebacker in a 4-3 defense. I couldn't really go too into detail about exactly what it is, but I just know there's a reason some linebackers work in one scheme and others don't. The same thing with a defensive lineman. Some work in a 3-4 and don't work in a 4-3 for whatever reason. How does that shake-up work out for your front seven, which is actually a pretty strong group, it looks like?
Yeah, I mean, the front seven is definitely one of the groups on the 49ers that could be really, really successful this year if they know how to switch over from the 3-4. And that's a big if. And there's a lot of if on the 49ers, but that's one that I'm feeling pretty confident in that they're going to be able to figure it out and be able to be successful. So one of the big transition pieces that's going to really help going from that 3-4 defense to the 4-3 defense is the pickup of nose tackle Earl Mitchell. He played that same position down for the Dolphins, and he's definitely going to be one of the stall gaps that's going to really help out a lot for the 49ers. And then it's really a mixed bag on what's going to happen with the rest of the defensive line. They have a lot of talent. There's no doubt about that. They've drafted 3 defensive linemen in the first round the last 3 years. Thomas this past year, Buckner the year before, and then Armstead the year before that. As of right now, what they're trying to do is they're going to have Thomas play the DE role on the strong side. They're going to have Buckner play the defensive tackle role in the 3 technique, and they're going to try out Armstead at the Leo position, which is going to be on the opposite side, on the weak side, going after the quarterback. Now, the problem with that issue is he's humongous. I believe he's like 6'7", really big guy. And he's going to have to bend the edge, and that's a little bit of an issue for a guy that big. Now, I do know from indications from Pro Football Focus that they reported that Armstead on passing down is going to pop to the middle. So he'll be on the inside with Buckner. And Buckner is going to be one of the best defensive linemen in the league this year. He had 6 sacks last year, and that was just the starting point. He was on the field pretty much for the majority, if not all the snaps the 49ers had on defense, which was crazy, good, and at the same time. But he's going to be a big, big guy this year. Now, they did bring in Malcolm Smith to help on the linebacking core, but hopefully Reuben Foster is going to be all right. He just got cleared today to practice in training camp, which is amazing. And hopefully it's going to be him and Willis in the middle with having Brooks on the other side, rushing the passer. So those are going to be the kind of the base 3 guys for linebacking core, and then they're going to bring some other people in. They have Aaron Lynch, who can play both on the line and a little bit off the line as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do with that front seven.
Yeah, and another one of those key veteran signings was Elvis Dumervil, who I think is more of a pass rushing outside linebacker in a 3-4, but in a 4-3, he could probably rush situationally. He's getting up there in age a little bit. But unlike 3rd and long situations, you could probably throw him out there in some sort of like mixed formation, and he'll definitely be able to help you guys out too.
He's an older guy. I don't know how much he has left in the tank. They decided to go out and get him a couple weeks ago, and I thought that was definitely a good move. I see him as all 3rd down in the 4-3, playing on the outside, rushing the quarterback, and hopefully he can pick up 3 or 4 sacks. I know he had 3 sacks last year, and he had 6 the year before. So if we can get in that 4 to 6 range, I'd be happy.
What kind of expectations do you have for this defense as a whole? This secondary doesn't look great. Eric Reed had a nice career early on, but it seems like he's falling a little more towards mediocrity. And
yeah, definitely. I couldn't have said it better myself, man.
Yeah, and Jimmy Ward's.
There's questions. There's definitely questions there. With the new defense that they're going to be running, Eric Reed's going to get a chance to play in the box a little bit more and use that size and strength that he has. So that definitely should be a move for him. And then one of the biggest moves that they're doing is they're moving Jimmy Ward, who played at the slot corner last year. He's going to be playing free safety. So if you know the Seattle Seahawks defense, where Earl Thomas plays that kind of single high safety, that's what Ward's going to be playing. He played that in college, so hopefully that transition is going to be solid for him. But that's going to be a big, big piece. You guys saw watching the Seahawks last year when Thomas went down, the Seahawks went down. That's because that defense relies on that guy in the middle of the field who's going to be running from sideline to sideline. And hopefully Jimmy Ward can be that guy for us. On the cornerback side, it's definitely unproven. Rashard Robinson had an amazing year last year as a rookie. He's going to be the number 1 corner, no doubt. Second and third spots are definitely up in the Witherspoon, who was drafted this year, and potentially on the other side would be Dante Johnson. So they're kind of battling it out for that second outside spot. And then on the slot spot, it's going to go either between Will Redmond, who kind of had a redshirt year last year because he was a little bit injured when they drafted him, between him and the second guy is Kawan Williams, who actually had a really good first couple years with the Browns. He rated really well in Pro Football Focus. That's guy probably going to win the position. But again, there's a lot of question marks, and that's always an issue when it comes to the NFL. You have question marks. Better teams don't have a lot of question marks.
So it seems like you're a little more comfortable in the offense and confident that they'll be pretty solid this year at least, but the defense is full of question marks, like you said. Is that how you think this team's going to go? It's pretty much going to be as far as Brian Hoyer and that Kyle Shanahan offense can go. That's as far as the 49ers are going to go, because the defense, with all the names, but the scheme change, it makes, that mixes everything up. And then the secondary is just, also pretty much changing positions as well. And these names are not household names. So How do you feel like as a whole team, where do you think this 49ers team can go performance-wise?
Performance-wise, it's all about going and taking a step in the right direction with the new regime with Shanahan. I think on the low end, probably 5 or 6 wins. I think they can. That the odds have, because I think they're going to go above that. I think just Shanahan himself and a lot of the new additions will take us above that particular level. High end, I would say 8-8. If they do anything better than 8-8, we're going to have parties at my house every single Sunday, because that's going to be one heck of a year.
All right, and then the last thing that I want to talk about from this offseason, we sort of talked about Shanahan, but I want to talk about how you guys feel as a fan base about John Lynch. He's got no prior experience whatsoever in scouting or front office in general. Now, how do you guys feel about that? And then follow that up with how he, just killed the Bears on draft day.
You said what? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part. How he killed the what? Killed the what?
He killed the Bears on draft day. With that trade.
Oh my God! When that happened and they popped up to get Trubisky, Zio was one of the other general managers that kind of helps him off the top of my head, but he actually wasn't the one who did that kind of bait and switch on them. But with that being said, to be able to pull in both Thomas and Reuben Foster in the first round is amazing. And I saw this behind the scenes of the 49ers where they showed Lynch kind of getting ready for the draft, and they followed him along. I think it was Monday Morning Quarterback. And I remember him saying before the draft, who are your top 2 guys? Who are you going to take? Number 1 was Thomas, and number 2 was Foster. That was with the 3rd pick in the draft. And then they get Foster late in tape, man. He can or pre-training camp and describe Foster as the water boy, because he goes around and he hits people and he's going to get a little crazy. You still there, Tanner?
Yeah, I just got the video out. It started to lag a little bit.
Going back to the fact that Lynch is unproven, I remember going back and forth with my brother about who the GM was going to be, and I was reading everything up on who's it going to be, and he goes, "It's Lynch," and I'm like, "Lynch? Yeah." He said, "John Lynch." I'm like, "Lynch?" Like, nobody was even talking about him at all. None of the guys on Twitter or anywhere were really talking about him. All of a sudden it happens, and we're like, okay, it's a big question mark. He's a big name, but he's never done it before. But hopefully his support staff, the people that have been there in the past, will definitely be able to help him out. And Shanahan looks like it's a 50-50 deal between him and Lynch. Shanahan's talked about the fact that he wanted that control to be able to talk with the GM as opposed to just dealing with whoever the guys he was given. And now he was given that authority with the 49ers, which has been amazing.
And just touch on the fact that they get these 6-year contracts. People get fired all the time from these positions, but it keeps getting brought up that they signed 6-year contracts, and that's so unheard of for a head coach and a general manager, just because it should suggest that there's job security there. And with a franchise like the 49ers, who haven't seen success in the last handful of years, how does that make you guys feel that they've pretty much locked in? The owners like said, these are our guys no matter what, moving forward
Yeah, I
for
mean,
a pretty long
it's all
time.
about it's all about thinking long term. Now, obviously, as a big 49ers fan, I want them to win every single game and go to the Super Bowl. Is that going to happen this year? Probably not. But knowing is amazing. The fact that we've gone through three coaches in the last 3 years isn't good for the organization. It's not good for the fan base. It's not good for the season ticket holders. But ever since they got rid of Harbaugh, it was like, where are we going to go from there? He was one of the best coaches ever in the NFL if you look over his career, and we got rid of him because he got in a drama with Jed York, and Jed York had the say over him as opposed to Harbaugh. So getting out of that and going through a couple other coaches and getting to something that's going to be consistent with a really strong offensive mind is definitely a positive for all the 49er fans out there.
All right, one more thing. As we finish up talking about the personnel in the front office, I just want to get you give us like a breakout player, a player to watch, a fantasy football sleeper, something along those lines. Who's somebody that, as an individual, you're really, really excited to watch and think is going to outdo expectations this year for the 49ers?
I think it's got to be Marquise Goodwin from the Bills. Goodwin had a solid year last year for the Bills. He had 26 catches for 431 yards and 3 TDs. So it was pretty much a breakout here, 100 yards there, something like that. But he had a nice big year. I went through a lot of the tape and really saw that he runs really 2 routes. This guy is fast. Like the Olympic Games fast. And he's going to be able to run 2 amazing routes already. He's going to run the go, okay? He's going to run past defenders, and he's going to run the comeback, and he runs them really, really well. So if you look through any of the Bills tape, that's what you'll see. But he needs to work on the rest of his routes. And I think Shanahan and the wide receivers coach over there can definitely have him do some amazing stuff. And he's going to be on the field a lot. He's going to be the number 2 wide receiver. He's going to be on the outside on one side. Garcon's going to be on the other side. And Curley's going to be primarily in the slot. But Goodwin's going to be one of those guys that he's going to break out. He's going to have a bunch of games where he has big, long runs after the catch.
All right, so everybody go draft Marquise Goodwin in your fantasy draft. That's actually a really interesting name. I was maybe expecting like Carlos Hyde or whatever, but that's a little too generic. But yeah, Marquise Goodwin's a really interesting one to watch. Let's get into the schedule now. You're obviously in the NFC West. The 2 divisions that you drew this year are the NFC East and the AFC South. And then outside of those 2 divisions, you also get the Panthers and the Bears. So not an awful draw. The AFC South is kind of weak. You're going to get to play the Jaguars. You're going to get to play the Texans, who also don't have a quarterback situation. Pretty solid schedule draw. But we're going to go through it game by game. I'm going to have you give me a win or a loss, and then if it's a big game or anything special that you want to talk about, we'll go ahead and do that. Week 1, you get Carolina at home. What do you think about that one?
I think it's a W. Last year we played against the Vikings at home for the season opener, and the Vikings ended up being a decent team last year. And I feel like we can take the Panthers. I know the Panthers had a tough year last year. They're definitely trying to bounce back. I saw today that Cam Newton's, has a different mindset. He actually talked about the fact that he was kind of taking it half speed in the past, but this year, after going through a tough year last year, that he was going to really go. As soon as that season ended for them last year, he was kind of balls to the wall. But I think we can take him that first year. I know I'm going to be at the game. It's going to be hyped and be crazy. I think we're going to get a win against the Panthers.
All right. I also have them winning that game, for the record. At Seattle, week 2. Divisional games are always a coin toss, in my opinion, but at Seattle, week 2, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I hate to say this, I got to be realistic. It's going to be tough to win in Seattle. They're always loud. They're always hitting hard. I'm really interested to see what Kyle Shanahan can do, because the one thing that the Seahawks do really, really well is they hit you in the mouth right away. Can Shanahan come up with some really cool, creative plays to get past that? I hope so, but my educated guess would be a loss.
All right, week 3 against the Rams at home.
Rams. I don't think they're there yet. They have a really good defense. They came to San Francisco last year. That was a home opener, and we took it from them. I'm going to be maybe a little bit of a homer, but I'm going to say they're going to win 2 out of the first 3.
Week 4 at Arizona.
They don't tend to play well in Arizona. Carson Palmer hopefully will have bounce. Hopefully, in terms of the Cardinals, for them, we'll have a bounce back year. For us, as a 49ers fan, hopefully he doesn't. But I see them being a strong team. It was interesting to be able to watch the Hard Knock style show they did on them, that Amazon has on them, which is really interesting. It's to kind of get to know a little bit more about Bruce Arians, and I would definitely have a lot of more respect for the guy. I think the Cardinals will probably take that one.
All right, and then this is your string of 3 straight road games at Indianapolis after that.
I'd say that's an L. Coming off, you're going 3 straight. It's going to be tough. I'd say that's an L against the Colts. See if Andrew last year, and I'd say an L for the Niners.
At Washington, Kirk Cousins is going to play in front of his potentially new team. I'm sure this is going to be a game that 49ers fans are paying a lot of attention to because of that possibility alone. But how do you feel about
the Cousins game? It's going to be the Cousins game. Who's going to get the Cousins? Since I'm going to be at that game because I'm about 30 minutes outside of DC. No positivity really going around them. I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day. I was like, "What do you think this year? What do you think this year?" They were 8-7-1 last year. He's like, "I don't know, man. I don't know." And that's kind of how they are. If you don't know the DC area that well, Redskin fans are kind of fair weather. Sometimes they love them, sometimes they hate them. I say the Niners are going to get that one.
All right, that's kind of a low key dig at Redskins fans too.
Yep.
And I like it. I know a couple Redskins fans, and I like to give them crap because I don't really think Kirk Cousins is that great of a quarterback. But again, different topic, different argument for a different day. Week after that, you guys get the Cowboys at home. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Cowboys are going to take it, even though they're coming into Santa Clara. Cowboys, one of the best teams in the league. They're going in the right direction. They keep on saying Cowboys are Super Bowl contenders. I think this is actually the year they actually get closer to that level, if not to the Super Bowl. So I would say it's an L for the Niners.
Week after that, your 3rd straight NFC East opponent at Philadelphia.
Philly, I think that it's a 1:00 start. Which is definitely tough with it being a 10 a.m. start for all the California West Coast guys. Eagles are going to be legit this year. I mean, bringing in Torrey Smith, he didn't do anything for the 49ers last year, but that's because we didn't have anybody to throw to him. Bringing in Alshon Jeffrey, I think they're going to be legit on the offensive side of the ball. They're definitely going to be getting after our cornerbacks and seeing if they're legit or not. I'd say we take the L on that one.
All right, and then you get the Cardinals at home.
I think bringing them back home, I say you get the W. I think going in the right direction. You're 3/4 of the way through the year. I think there's going to be some positive momentum for the Niners, and I say that you take the win on that one.
Then you get the Giants at home.
That's going to be a tough one too. They got a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball and a decent talent on the defensive side of the ball. I'd say the Giants take that one.
All right, so then you get a bye week before you get the Seahawks at home. So I'm sure that bye week is going to play into your favor a little bit, especially going into a big divisional game. What do you think of that one?
That's a tough one. Seahawks are one of the better teams in the league. They're coming to San Francisco. They still tend to play decent on the road when they come to San Francisco. I'd have to say it's tough for me to say this. It hurts, and I know a lot of 49er fans will be hating on me after this one, but I'd say they take the L on that one too.
All right, at Chicago.
Chicago, that's the question mark at the quarterback position, right? Is it going to be Glennon? Is it going to be Trubisky? They have a decent, solid running back. But I think that the 49ers will pull that one out to end the year on a positive note and go into next year with even more rolling steam.
All right, then you get at Houston.
That's going to be a tough one. I feel like they have some potential in there. Their defense is really good. That's really going to be a battle between Shanahan and J.J. Watt and the rest of the team over there. I'd say they get the L.
All right, and then you guys actually finish up the season with a pretty nice 3-game stretch. You get Tennessee and Jacksonville at home before you go to L.A. to play the Rams. I'd say these are three very winnable games, especially if the Titans don't live up to expectations. But what do you think about getting the Titans at home?
I think Titans at home are definitely is their place cross country, but I think the Titans are going to be legit. I mean, I like Mariota. Guy doesn't get a lot of love. Was a former 49er, Delaney Walker. I think he's going to be another standout year for him. I say we take the L on that one.
Then you get Jacksonville at home.
Now that one, I think we got. Bortles is good, but he's not great yet. They're going to have to step up after having a couple losses at home, and I think that's a great place for them to step up against Jacksonville.
All right, and the season finale, you go to LA to play the Rams. What do you think of that one?
Again, Rams, I still don't think are a legit team. Playing at home last year, they were okay. It's kind of their new home because of their move from St. Louis. But I gotta from them. Actually, let's go. Let's give them a win too. I'll be a homer on this one.
All right. So count it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You got the 49ers going 7-9. When I went through the schedule, I just quick gut reactions. I had them at 4-12, but I would say if we merged our scores together, it'd probably be somewhere around 5 or 6 win range, like you were saying.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, you definitely made some good points as to I had them losing to Chicago, whereas you had them winning. I had them losing at the Rams in Week 17. You had them winning. Those are two games that could go either way, especially because the quarterback situation is a toss-up for all the teams involved. But yeah, I really like the last 3 games on that schedule. Those are 3 games that you could win if you guys start clicking, and but at the same time, who knows if those teams that you're playing against start clicking, it could go either way. But anyways, you had them going 7-9. I had them going 4-12. Before we close this out, there's one more thing I wanted to ask you. What's the one trend or one thing that you're looking for that you want people to look for, just to sort of put a bow on this whole podcast? What's the one big thing to watch for from the 49ers this year?
I mean, it's got to be Shanahan. I mean, what is he going to do with the talent that they have? Carlos Hyde, I believe, is one of the best running backs in the league, and he's been underutilized. He hasn't had a good offensive line since he's gotten here, and he really has potential to break out, and I feel like Shanahan's going to find a way for him to break out, and Shanahan's going to do a lot of amazing things with all that speed that they have, from Goodwin to Aldrick Robinson to Jeremy Curley and Trent Taylor. They got a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, and he's going to make the most out of it. And we haven't talked about one of their backup running backs. They have 2 backup running backs that are probably going to get a decent amount of time. Joe Williams, who they drafted in the 3rd round, and Tim Hightower. And I think both of those guys are going to have a decent year, 400 or 500 yards, that type of stuff, in addition to Hyde, where I'm hoping is going to have at least over 1,000 yards and 10-plus touchdowns. But you got to stay healthy. But the biggest thing is look at Shanahan's offense and understand how smart of a mind he is.
All right. Great insight there from Aaron Wilson. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on really quick before we end this? Anything that we didn't talk about?
I think we covered all the bases. I mean, it's a big change for the 49ers this year, and it's a big positive change. And we're, as 49ers,
all right, go ahead and plug your website and anything else that you want to real quick before we end this.
Yeah, so check out, for all your up-to-date 49ers news and information, check out InsideThe49.com, and also check us out on Twitter. Twitter name is @InsideThe49.
All right. Well, thanks, Aaron, for coming on the podcast. Appreciate your insight. If anybody wasn't paying attention to the 49ers before this, they're going to. That Kyle Shanahan offense is going to be something to watch for. I can't thank you enough, man, for coming on the podcast and talking about your boys.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.
All right, well, this has been the Level-Headed Podcast. Stay tuned as we're going to preview all 32 NFL teams. This was just the first one. Next up is looking like the Jacksonville Jaguars. So follow us on, Twitter @LevelHeads2. You can find us on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts or iTunes. We're the Level-Headed Podcast. Just search for the name, and then we're also on Facebook now, so go like us there. I'm on Twitter at Nestle is the name, and the other Levelhead is at mcray, WRHI. He's doing a ton of college football stuff, so check his stuff out too. And until next time, thanks for listening. I just want to say thanks to Aaron again for coming on the podcast. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. There were some times where we cut in and out, but we fought through it. He still gave us great stuff. If you can sort of ignore that, we had an excellent conversation about the 49ers. And I just want to remind you guys again, stay tuned to the Level-Headed Podcast on SoundCloud and iTunes. We got more great stuff coming. All 32 teams are going to be covered before week 1. That's my goal. Thanks for listening.